Hey, it's me, Destiny Brand, founder of It's Destiny Sales Recruiting, and hopefully your recruiter. I wanted to talk a little bit today about proactive interviewing. The recruiting life cycle, or getting a sales job or sales executive job, is very similar, but also the exact opposite of the classic B2B sales process. It is similar in the sense that sometimes you have to engage and give value in order to warrant the call and move through the process. The opposite in the sense that how you run your calls can be completely different than it is in B2B sales. For example, in B2B sales, we want to have a 50-50 dialogue. We want to listen as much as we talk. We want to make sure that both parties have an opportunity to say their piece. We don't want to operate under the assumptive phase, right? We want to give a lot of permission before we get into too many stories. And so a lot of analytical people, a lot of people with a lot of tenure and maturity in sales in their executive career, or maybe even people who are neurodivergent, kind of have a lapse in understanding of how the interview process is different than the sales cycle in these senses. So my advice for getting your power back or being more proactive in the recruiting life cycle, rely on 3 points. The first is going to be an agenda. The second is going to be the tell me about yourself pitch. And the third is going to be how you sell, or the context you give in the types of questions that you ask. So going to the first point in an agenda, I always tell my candidates an interview really starts before people even meet you. You want to make sure your resume and your LinkedIn are in alignment, but think about examples that people are going to want to know about your sales approach, about your executive approach, how you made your company money, saved your company money, improved things, any sales stories of how you won deals, lost deals, how you designed or implemented certain things, examples of your soft skills, grit, resiliency, and how you're able to do that is to just build out some of these stories, reverse engineer these examples or questions that people have been asking you or would ask you. And then in an agenda, you send that ahead of time. Similar to the sales cycle, like not a lot of people are going to meet with an executive without sending an agenda. Or if you don't, you have a very specific reason as to why you don't do that. So I do encourage most candidates send an agenda or a pre-interview note, giving more context and examples so that trust, that value, how they'll be able to understand how you think will happen ahead of time. So a way to be more proactive is build out these stories or these themes ahead of time and send them in a post-interview note, or if you feel more comfortable, in a post-interview follow-up. But really the post-interview note is what I recommend. The second way to be more proactive is that tell me about yourself pitch. There's 2 opportunities in the tell me about yourself pitch to give context, where a lot of times the person who is interviewing you is not going to directly ask for that. The first is just making sure that you have all of your numbers, examples, all of your touch points. How do you go from X amount of touch points to get to Y meetings to get to your closed one? Most importantly, in that tell me about yourself pitch is to then really highlight examples of, or give a potential objection, right? If you're the kind of person who has sat on enough interviews, or you just have, a sense that why are people not giving you this objection, or why are they not asking you about that? Because unlike the sales cycle, where you have an opportunity for both parties to kind of give objections and plead their case, in a sales interview, they most likely are not bringing up the elephant in the room or the most unforeseen objection. They're just thinking, oh, well, this candidate didn't bring it up, or maybe in their debrief, your champion, your recruiter doesn't have the context they need. So they say, well, it's really on the candidate to bring that up. So in that tell me about yourself pitch, make sure that you are bringing up any sort of objections. As it relates to that tell me about yourself pitch as well, that's going to be asked a bunch of different ways. Why are we here today? What questions? What do you have for me, Destiny? So the context support before you answer that tell me about yourself pitch is how you get proactive by saying, hey, Destiny, I know that you have a lot of competition for this role. My understanding is that you're probably trying to find someone coming from, this direct competitor who, is also another Series B startup. So I want to get just straight into what I've done, why I'm good at it, throughout my entire sales career, what I've done most recently as it aligns to my quota or building the go-to-market function. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what about the product, what about the people, what about the product positioning aligns with my interests and my skill set. And then the goal is for you to give me additional kind of talking points or value points so that this can be more of a, mutual call. By giving them the context of like, hey, I'm going to do the opposite of what I normally would do in sales. I'm going to sell to you what what I know. I'm going to bridge you the gaps. A lot of people interviewing are going to go like, wow, awesome. This person kind of knows the game that we're playing. They know the examples, the context, and especially when you sent that post-interview note and you're kind of teeing them up for how proactive you are, this can just go a long way with some of again, the misunderstandings for some of the profiles I discussed earlier on how to get their power back and run a conversation. Similar to sales, no one's giving us 30 minutes of our time to talk about things that we should have already included in our resume and our LinkedIn. And similar to sales, the buyer isn't always asking, the questions that we can alleviate kind of the anxiety or fear. They just won't ask it, and then enough data won't be made for them to warrant a second call. The third thing is when you ask questions. So a lot of people, especially at a higher maturity, ask a lot of kind of direct questions that fit their pain checklist. And one thing that can happen at every level is the interviewer is like, well, how much context do you really need? So a way to be proactive is to sell what you do know or what you've done, ask the direct question, and then ask follow-up questions to further qualify or quantify the advice that they're giving you. And the goal is to take little data points from every champion or every mini decision maker that loops into the ultimate decision maker, the VP of sales, the CRO, the founder, and how their job is done and how they actually build their forecast models, their quotas, and all that sort of fun stuff. So again, 3 ways to kind of take your power back or be more proactive in your interview is sending an agenda, bringing up context of how you're going to run the call and how you're going to invite them into it, including potential objections they may have about you and your candidacy. And then when asking good questions, sell what you do know so that you're getting the right kind of context and insights that you need to build a case and move forward in the interview and recruiting life cycle. If no one's told you today, you're absolutely amazing. You're more than enough. Don't forget to drink your water. Cheers to you.